You are now watching the True Mets Talk podcast live stream. We will be going live shortly. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel.
Down the right field, stumbling start for Stewart. Astros to deep left field by Alvarez. He's homered in 4 straight games for the second time in he's homered in 4.
What's up, everyone? It's your boy CP, and happy Friday for all you Mets fans out there across the country. We are one happy fan base. We are live here early in this afternoon talking New York Mets baseball. I got my guy Nick from the He Did This To Me podcast up here. And I know that you're all the way out in the West Coast, still repping the New York Mets. And again, the fans, this fan base, we deserve this. It's electric. We're going to talk about a wild card series recap. We're going to talk about the NLDS preview between the Mets and the Phillies. We're going to talk about it all, right? Because this is an electric time to be a Mets fan, and that's simply all I can say at this moment. But welcome, Nick. Thank you for joining me. I know you got a busy day ahead of you, and you got a lot of stuff going on, so it means a lot. You know, recurring guest on the channel. Thank you for being here.
Hey, man, I'm going off like 2 hours of sleep right now. Like you said, I'm out here in Arizona. I was just walking through a mall in Arizona with my, my Mets jersey and my Mets hat on, and I got counted 4 different "Let's go Mets" or some sort of comment from somebody randomly. And hey, we're the people that eliminated the D-backs. By the way, that game, that clincher against the D-backs, me, my father, and my 2 children were all at that game, by the way. That game that gave us the beginning of a 9-game win streak, that gave us the tiebreaker. All these years, all these things that you put up with, I was in the building for Beltran looking at that hook from Adam Wainwright. And I remember walking out of that stadium and how I felt last night, man. There's last night, and slightly after that might be the birth of my first child. That's how great of a night it was.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Yeah, listen, man, this is a great time to be a Mets fan. I think that statement that you just said puts things into perspective about, how huge of a time it is for us. And real quick, if you guys missed the post game, Rob and I were live after that win last night. Go check it out. It was electric. Yes, there might have been a handful of F-bombs between myself and Rob, but again, you cannot replicate those types of moments, and they come, maybe a handful of times in a lifetime if you're lucky. And we were absolutely bringing the hype. And before we start this podcast, you see this beautiful celebration that the Mets had going on right over here after they clinched the wild card series yesterday. I didn't get a chance to play this, right? We always spam the W's. That's a part of a routine in my post games. I didn't get a chance to play this. I conjured this up a little bit. Let's take a look at this. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We are talking about a New York Mets victory. Shout out to everybody in the chat here. We appreciate you all taking some time in your early Friday afternoons. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of content creators in this Mets community, this great Mets community over on YouTube. I know the Roundtable fellas, Hector, Rob, and everybody's going to be live later today. Unfortunately, I can't join them. That's why I'm doing this live with Nick. But please make sure if you're in the chat on YouTube, vote in the live chat poll, hit the thumbs up on this stream. This is also being streamed over to Nick's YouTube channel. You can find him and that link to his channel in the description down below. And you can also see right here, this is his ad on YouTube. Again, talking Mets, talking Knicks, talking sports in general. Great content over there. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe to Nick and his pops, talking all things New York sports. And drop those live chat comments. How are we feeling today, Mets fans? How are we feeling? We see a picture like this to my left. How are we feeling? I see some people in the chat already. I love it. We got Cindy in the chat. We got Darren in the chat spamming the W's. We've got John from Pure Adrenaline Sports. I've never been happier to be wrong about a player, and I'm sure he's talking about Pete Alonso because guess what? A lot of people were wrong about Pete Alonso. Blue spamming the W's. Steven saying hello to everybody. Wow, this is a lively environment. We got Liz in the chat as well. Junior, salute to Junior. As always, appreciate you being here. Keep dropping those comments. Listen, the thing that we have to talk about first and foremost, right? I've been wrong about Pete Alonso. A lot of people have been wrong about Pete Alonso. And again, it's not necessarily, being wrong or right. It's the fact that he did what he did in the regular season. In my humble opinion, there's a handful of statistics you can throw out there in his 2024 season that he definitely struggled with. I threw out his pitch splits on my X account. Again, go follow me over there if you guys don't. Same handle as my YouTube. And abysmal against the slider, pretty good against the fastball, elite against the changeup. And guess what he goes out there and does last night, Nick? He goes out there, gets a floater, a meatball of a changeup from Devin Williams, and he knocks it out of the park for one of the biggest home runs, right? In New York Mets history, right? One of the, I'm not going to put it at the top, but I'm going to say one of the. But this was so damn memorable. Look at this picture right here of Pete Alonso. He honestly knew he got all of it off the bat. I was watching it back. He had no questions. He kind of chuckled to himself as he hit it because he knew it was going out. And before we talk about this moment and how hype everyone got, I'm not sure if you guys follow, right, John Boy and what he does in all of his breakdowns over on YouTube. That moment, right, and the breakdown of the tipping of the pitches, whether that was what Pete Alonso was kind of looking for in that bat or not, the moment between, and we talk about these hitting coaches and Eric Chavez and Jeremy Barnes, the most important moment that might have saved the Mets season was Jeremy Barnes and Pete Alonso's discussion right before Pete Alonso went up to the plate before this home run. If you look at John Boy Media in the breakdown, he does a great job. I love the narration. Honestly, great stuff. I know he's a Yankees fan, but he does some great stuff. Jeremy Barnes was telling Pete Alonso, right? He didn't even have his mouth covered, right? Usually they do that to sort of refrain from, giving away the secrets or whatever. Jeremy Barnes said, that's the changeup. And I don't know exactly if he was alluding to the actual glove placement, but that is tremendous coaching right there. And Pete Alonso, locked in as ever, acknowledged him, right? Even did like a confirmation. So if he does X, Y, Z, that's the changeup. Okay, got it. And then he went up there and smashed a changeup over the right field wall. Nick, that's something that goes over a lot of people's heads. And we talk about the lack of production on the field in terms of the numbers and how we're going to blame the hitting coach. I've done it myself, and I'm guilty of that this season as well, particularly more so on the side of Eric Chavez, right, and his philosophies than Jeremy Barnes. But again, it doesn't really matter. Just walk through this moment. Walk me through the tipping of the pitches from Devin Williams, what you saw there, and just your overall reaction to how big of a moment this was, not only for the New York Mets, but for Pete Alonso, who obviously prior to that dropped a crucial pop-up that didn't end up hurting him, right? Because Edwin Diaz got out of it. But it's like, what are you doing at that point? Just walk me through it, man. So much to unpack.
Listen, I think he was definitely tipping his pitches, and I think the even better indication, other than the changeup that he ended up hitting out, look at the 2-1 changeup that he takes inside. You could see that he just spit on that ball from the beginning because he just knew it was a change and that it was going to end up out of the zone. Pete is a guy who typically will almost look like he's check swinging sometimes. Like he'll get almost to a check swing. He's not a just spit on a pitch kind of guy, just watch it the entire way. So I definitely think that he was tipping his pitches. Just amazing job by Barnes and I mean, even if you go back to Lindor's at bat, he looked like he was right when when the fastball came, he was right there. He just missed it. He got beat. But, he looked like he was right on it as well. And I mean, you can't write this stuff. You look at this game, and I said this after the game that game one of the doubleheader against the Braves. I said after that game that this is a microcosm of our season, the way that this team just won't die, and we just keep coming back, and it can look all bad. And when it comes time, we're always going to get up off the mat. We're always going to fight and battle all the time. And guess what? Last night we got another microcosm, and all game I'm watching the game with one of my best friends since we're little kids. He is a Yankees fan. He's given me a hard time my entire life. And even he, when we got down by 2 runs, was like, hey man, I'm rooting for some October magic right now. Come on, let's, I did predict a Subway Series back in like June. And, there's a chance that we could see something magical like that. If that's the case, I'm going to have to go ahead and, find my way back east somehow, some way to get in the building for one of those. But, hey, man, listen, Pete, all is forgotten. All is forgiven. Blank check. Met for life. One of the greatest moments. See, it's not one of the greatest Mets home runs of all time. It's one of the greatest home runs in the history of baseball. After Joe Carter, how many guys are hitting go-ahead home runs in the ninth down by 2? I'll tell you the answer. Nobody. Never been done before, but it has been done by Pete Alonso. He gets himself into the situation. He does it for the boys, as he said, and we all get to just revel in it, man. I mean, the everything. I got the walk from Lindor. I mean, come on. Mike Francesa said last night that you'd almost rather, if you're the opposite team, see a solo shot right there as opposed to a walk. You put the pitcher in the stretch, and everything, just the whole room gets small at that point. And I actually just got done talking to a buddy of mine that I work with, who's from Wyoming, who played Legion ball with Brandon Nimmo. And he's like, the thing about Nimmo is Nimmo's always going to grind. He's not going to be great at anything, but he's pretty good at everything. Great at bat by him. Down, 2 strikes, gets the base knock, and Pete delivers, man. Nobody, he's the only person that knew it was a home run off the bat, but he was right, and we all get to just, bask in the glory today. I love you, Pete. I love you, Mets. I mean, what a night.
What a night is absolutely right. And something that I took away from this is something that we've been asking for, begging for, pleading for this whole season, right, from this New York Mets offense, is the core stepping up when it mattered the most. And Pat Murphy, got to give credit first and foremost to Pat Murphy, hell of a manager, first-year manager for the Milwaukee Brewers, taking that organization to that point. I will say that I do respect him. I respect the Brewers organization. But again, right, what did he say in his post-game, press conference? Those guys do what they're supposed to do, and they did what they're supposed to do. This entire season, Rob, myself, everybody has been pleading for the 3 core guys, right? Not even Jeff McNeil factoring into this. The 3 core guys, 2 of the guys that got paid, one of them that wants to get paid, like you just said, Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, and Brandon Nimmo, to step up when it matters the most as a core unit. And that's what they did. You get a leadoff walk from Francisco Lindor, who's put up MVP type numbers, right? Again, I'm still thinking about that home run, that go-ahead home run he hit in that Braves game to sort of send the Mets to the playoffs. That was absolutely the definition of clutch. And then we were kind of missing that clutch gene from Pete Alonso. And this is exactly what you want to see out of your core players. And, it's refreshing to see. That's all I have to say about it. It's absolutely refreshing to see. So again, postseason baseball, what you do in the regular season obviously matters to an extent in terms of the contract negotiations. But at this point, right, we talk about the contract negotiations in the offseason. Whatever happens is going to happen. But we have an NLDS series to talk about. And hopefully Pete Alonso can be a huge part of that, as, same thing with Nimmo, same thing with Lindor, et cetera, for this upcoming series, because it's all hands on deck against the Phillies. Now, what I will say is I'm kind of losing train of thought because I'm just still, again, in my live chat poll, I'm asking everybody, did you lose faith at one point of the night last night? And personally, I'm not going to lie to you, I kind of did. I'm going to actually hold myself accountable, and I'm going to say that I lost a little bit of faith, especially, right, not even the first Buto home run that he gave up, but definitely the second one. I was like, oh, no. I tweeted Jose Quintana deserves so much better than this because he was dealing, right, for 6 scoreless innings. But the Mets got it done, and that is the most important thing. Above all else, above the narratives, right, that anybody that talks about this team has, it doesn't quite matter at the end of the day as long as this team is winning, because that's what any Mets fan, presumably, right, wants to see. So, again, appreciate you all being here. Carlos is spamming those W's in the chat. George is saying thank you, Lindor, Nimmo, Alonso, Winker, Marte. We're going to get into a little bit of a breakdown of this actual series here. I wanted to give Pete the moment, the spotlight up front, because as much of a rough season that he's had with the talking points and everybody kind of down on him, I think that he deserves to be at the forefront of this podcast, to give him a little bit of respect and to still remind everybody that this guy can put the ball over the fence more often than not. So shout out to Pete Alonso. But let's recap this actual series, because this was one of the better series in like recent wild card and playoff, moments in general, across the entirety of the MLB, right? This was a hell of a series from both sides. You have the recap right here. You have the breakdown in terms of your box score, game 1, 2, 3, with each respective Mets starters lines. Again, game 1, you come out there and Luis Severino doesn't have his best stuff early on, but he kind of weathers that storm. You see here, 6 innings pitched. He got progressively better as the game went on. 8 hits. He went above 100 pitches, which seems kind of rare nowadays, the way that Carlos Mendoza is managing in terms of being methodical about who he brings out of the pen. But he was able to go 105 pitches, and the offense did the job. And this is something, right? Talking about Pete Alonso's home run, that was the Mets' first home run of the series, right? We saw home runs from Jackson Chourio times the night prior, right? We saw the 2 home runs they hit prior to Pete Alonso's home run, but we didn't see any home runs out of the New York Mets. And there's 2 ways to win a baseball game from the offense perspective, I think. There's the philosophy, like we always say, death by a million cuts, single them to death, draw some walks, be pesky. That's like what the 2022 New York Mets did. And then there's some other ways to win the game, like putting the ball in the gap. Jesse Winker with a triple, right? We're talking about that way, or via the long ball in the home run. And I think that, honestly, playoff baseball is kind of geared to where you can be successful doing both. But knowing the star power that you have in this lineup, especially from Pete Alonso, Lindor, who at the shortstop position is a 30-plus home run guy consistently. Brandon Nimmo can put the ball at the ballpark, right? These guys are capable. We just didn't see it up until that point. So, again, a great game 1 victory for the New York Mets. But, a couple of guys I definitely have to shout out this series. Nick, first and foremost, Jesse Winker, the amount of boos that he received from his former team, jawing, right, to set the tone of the series with Willy Adames, former teammate, getting hit by multiple pitches, right? He only got that 1 triple in game 1, but he got on base. And he said after the game, that Frankie Montas pitch that hit him was on purpose after what he did with Willy Adames. And I honestly, I'm kind of, I tend to agree with him. That definitely was on purpose. But also, hell of a series by Starling Marte. Can we give Starling Marte his props? That guy was absolutely tremendous for the New York Mets. And I don't think that people are talking about that quite nearly enough. So what stood out to you here? Obviously, the pitching lines, etc. What stood out to you most, obviously, outside of the Pete Alonso heroics in this series?
Jesse Winker, he's our douche. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we're always going against these guys who's just like, man, this guy's such a douche. He's ours, though. Like, he's our douche. It's nice to have that guy be on our team, and I loved what he did in game 1. Let's go. Let's get fired up. Another example of Mendy just rolling all 7s and 11s. I mean, every once in a while, you're going to crap out. Every once in a while, you crap out. You crap out with Budo. You crap out with Maton the night before. But that's the reason that you can't second guess this guy, because he does things like throwing Winker in there, and he delivers with the big RBI, 2 RBI triple, and then go ahead and let's bring in JD Martinez, and then he gets a big hit. I mean, it's just, this guy has been just he's done such a fantastic job all year. I really, one of my favorite things from last night in the post game, you watch Iglesias, and then it transferred over into Carlos Mendoza's post-game interview. I mean, the emotion and the belief and the way that this team has been built. I mean, just a fantastic start by Quintana. I wanted to run him out of Queens at one point in the season. He puts together a fantastic September, and then has, the game of his life, going up there and pitching 6 scoreless. And now we got Mr. Ghost Fork. It looks like he's going to be coming in tomorrow on Saturday and getting
breaking news
ready to go.
Right on
breaking
this pod.
News. So we are, it's just everything. Sometimes the stars align, and I'm so used to seeing this happen for everybody else. And it's just so nice for it to finally feel like it's happening to us. We are truly at the point of house money. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not one, when I get there, I want more. But you know what? Forget the house money, man. Philly, that's my least favorite team, fan base, city. I don't like nothing about Philly. I might buy a cheesecake today just to throw it in the trash. And my thing is like, listen, man, this team, they've been sitting around. We got Wheeler, who would still be a Met if Uncle Stevie was the owner back then. And he's going to be coming in game 1. We just knocked him around. We just won 3 out of 4 out of them. There's nothing going to stop us. Pete is about to get red hot. Mark my words. And I will say, listen, if you pay attention and you listen to me over on He Did This to Me sports podcast by a father and son who happen to be mostly optimistic Knicks, Jets, and Mets fans, I'm the eternal optimist, okay? And I just kept saying, we just have to continue to have the other guys step up enough to give Pete a chance. And going into last night's game, it was like, hey, we have to have the big guys step up. Lindor was the only person who could hit a ball for the first 8 innings, and then we put it together in the 9th. But I kept feeling like if we just give this guy a chance, he's going to step up. It's going to come. I was very, very happy that Mendoza brought him back up. Don't push this guy down. I read your tweet yesterday, CP. I read your tweet, but no, you can't push him down. You got to keep this guy confident. And hey, he got the pitch. He didn't miss it. He hit the piss out of it, and we all get to go home happy. What a win. What a moment for that guy, man. I mean, this guy, I've always said you can't let a guy who is the best home run hitter since he's been in baseball get away when you're the New York Mets and you have the richest owner in sports. And you know what? Everybody keeps talking about, you didn't have a great year. And if you're a Mets fan, you know that at the end of the day, he did not have a great year. It wasn't what you typically, expect from Pete Alonso, but 34 home runs, 88 RBIs, that's your down year? Hey, man, like those guys don't grow on trees. And, I think last night he cemented himself as far as his Mets legacy. And I think he cemented himself to be wearing orange and blue for the rest of his career. And it's just, what a night, man. What a night and what a team. The way that this team is straight up built on production. You go back to a guy like Iglesias. One of my favorite stories from the season is the fact that in the preseason, when he was looking at where he was going to sign, the Mets were honest with him and told him that there might not be a spot for him on this roster. He might not end up, making it to the big club. And he's so used to being jerked around throughout his entire career that the fact that the Mets were honest with him is why he eventually ended up signing with the Mets. And then we bring this guy in. You go back to like a guy like Dedniel Nunez, who was not on the radar, and he kind of came up because there were some injuries, and then he performs, and guess what? He stays. That's what this whole team is about. If you perform, if you get it done, we're going to get you out there, and we're going to find a spot for you. And these guys continue to have faith in themselves, and I think it comes from the faith of their manager, and it goes all the way to the top. How lucky are we to have one of the best young minds in baseball, the best owner and the richest owner in sports, and they're two guys who actually grew up as Mets fans and understand this and love this like we do.
Yes, like we can talk about, obviously we're in the middle of a playoff race right now, right in the thick of things, but I think that's an important thing to note, that no matter how this season ends now, because a lot of people, myself included, think that the Mets are kind of playing with house money now. They have nothing to lose, but you might as well just make it as far as you can, obviously. At this point, it's important to realize that the Mets and who's leading this and who's steering this ship from the top down, these guys know what the hell they're doing, from Steve Cohen to David Stearns, all the way down to all the recruitment turnover that they've had with their personnel, right? Carlos Mendoza, the guy who actually makes the day-to-day decisions with the personnel. Like it's mind-boggling how much this organization turned around from the debacle that it was last season under Billy Epler and company to now just being one of the teams that is right in the middle of a playoff race, but also has one of the brightest futures, right? With the players that are already under contract and the young players coming up. But again, for those of you on the chat who are viewing this and you don't have X or any other social media open, right? This man is pitching for the Mets tomorrow. Kodai Senga officially is pitching for the New York Mets against the Philadelphia Phillies in Game 1 of the NLDS. Ghost Fork is back, ladies and gentlemen. And it was discouraging, right? When Kodai Senga was supposed to be back for that Atlanta series, we got some brutal news. But again, I dropped a short. It's part of my Mets news in a minute sort of series that I do, is that the reports were very adamant that he was still going to continue to throw, even though he felt the tricep soreness in case the Mets got to this point. And guess what? Now the man is back. And no better time to be back than right now, heading to Philadelphia. So I love it. And you also know why I love this is that you saw the watch party that the Mets were having at Citi Field as well, right? Obviously, it's not a sold-out crowd or anything, but those fans in the stadium were getting hyped. And now officially, Queens Citi Field gets playoff baseball back in this series, no matter what. No matter what. And that's what I absolutely love. But again, this is an absolute like I'm sitting here talking about this, just like still replaying this game in my head, and just like I'm still trying to process it. But we do have some more comments coming in here. Steven, yes, you are right. You did see Brett Beatty in the dugout. He is traveling wherever the team goes because he is part of the taxi squad. And he is traveling. So he is part of the celebrations, right? He's part of it all. He's with the team, essentially. And then Aaron also, right, echoing what I said and owning up and admitting that we had no faith in Pete Alonso maybe in that at-bat because the guy over his last 41 at-bats to that point was doing what he was doing, which wasn't pretty. But again, all that goes out the window. And again, the hashtag that I use, I know it's Mets win on X, but it's changed the narrative for me. And that's what the Mets continue to do. They continue to change the narrative. Oh, they struggle at Truist Park. They can't beat the Braves in crucial situations. They did that, right, to punch their ticket to the playoffs. Oh, the Brewers, they get owned by the Brewers. They can't win, especially in Milwaukee. Guess what? They just won. What's next? We can't beat the Phillies? I don't know. Change the narrative. That's my mantra. That's my mantra. But listen, again, top to bottom, pitching has been fantastic. Obviously, the blunders of Phil Maton and Jose Butto aside. Luis Severino was fantastic. He did enough to keep the Mets in the ball game, was able to provide some length. Sean Manaea as well, right? I thought the Mets had a great chance. They had the pitching advantage in that game to close it out in 2 games and not even get third. Unfortunately, the late heroics for the Brewers kind of prevailed. But again, Sean Manaea was brilliant, and he only threw 86 pitches, which I was kind of surprised at that time that Carlos Mendoza gave him the pull. Also, you had Reed Garrett, who pitched really well in that game. Ryan Stanek pitched really well in that game. So again, these guys are stepping up in crucial situations. But again, like Jose Butto, I want to take a second to talk about Jose Butto because this guy, I wrote him off, Nick. I wrote him off this season. When he struggled mightily, knowing that he throws 91 to 92, knowing he has to be perfect with the location given the lack of velocity, right? Knowing that he's 36 years old, going on 37 on the last year of his deal, probably is not going to be a New York Met unless take your deal to be a SP5 for the New York Mets in 2025. I wrote him off. And for that, my deepest and most sincere apologies to you, Mr. Jose Quintana, because that what you just did as a veteran, when your team needs you the most, to go out there in an electric environment, first of all, but also against a pretty sneaky, pesky Brewers lineup with the amount of speed they have, right? Again, the power too from their top 4 guys, namely 6 shutout innings. He got into some jams, was able to get himself out of said jams, and he was really the veteran presence that the New York Mets desperately needed in such a crucial game when they couldn't turn to anybody else besides him, right? So 6 innings pitched, 4 hits, no earned runs, 94 pitches. He hands it off to the bullpen, couple mistakes, but the offense is able to get the series win in Game 3 for the New York Mets. But I think really what I have here at the bottom of the screen, Lindor, Nimmo, and Alonso coming through, that is the epitome of what we all wanted to see in this season at some point, whether it was the regular season or in the playoffs. We know as a fan base that the rest of the lineup can only carry this team so far. If the Mets to get to where they want to go, right, they're going to need this core to step up consistently and be the driving factor. And everybody around them is going to prosper, and they're going to continue those contributions to be a complete lineup clicking on all cylinders. I love it. Let's talk about anything else with this series that you want to cover, because we're about 30 minutes onto the stream here. Again, I can't understate or overstate how electric of a wild card series this was for the New York Mets. Anything else on this series that you want to kind of go over?
It's kind of crazy that we haven't even mentioned David Peterson.
Yeah.
He comes in and gets a huge save, and shout to the entire Mets staff, other than Diaz, for neutralizing the run game with this team that loves to, utilize their speed. They love to take extra bases, and they were taking some extra bases, especially on Nimmo's arm. But overall, they didn't run us out of the ballpark like they did, back in May or in that series, that second to last series of the season. And, Peterson comes in and, not only that he gives up that initial hit and you're like, oh, shit. But then he settles down, he gets the strikeout, and then the smarts of Lindor. Lindor is such a heady player. The smarts of him to let that ball bounce and say, because he could have caught that ball on the fly, but he knows, hey, if it bounces, I get it. And then, hey, we're not even going to deal with a possible flip or anything. He's just going to run straight through the bag, fire it over to Pete. And, we get to go ahead and pop a little bit of champagne. The familial vibe of this team. You see Lindor, the way he embraces the Cohens after the game. You see just, Nimmo wouldn't even talk about his own hit when he was interviewed. All he talked about was Pete and the fact that this guy just stays ready and, continued to work. And he got his moment and he delivered. Just an all-around team effort. It's been that way all season. Like I said, from top to bottom, Mendoza should be the manager of the year. Shohei Ohtani, I know he had a great year, 50-50, all of that. He doesn't play the field. Lindor plays a premier position and he is fantastic at it. He's my MVP. And, it's just what a year, man. What a year, what a season. And, like I said, I never go house money, but I do feel that way. But I'm getting greedy, man. I want to give it to these Philly fans, especially after, that Knicks Sixers series last year. That just added even a little bit more fire. And I think these guys, man, at this point, I'll never give up on this team. There'll never be a situation where I feel like, you know what? We can't get it done. I will always, as long as there is still an out, I will always think that this team has a chance to get it done. And they've proven me right over and over again this season.
27 outs is what the game of baseball is. And I said it in the pregame yesterday. If you were paying attention to Rob and my stream, right, before the game, 27 outs. The Mets, they played 21 outs the night prior, which is why they lost. You got to play a complete 27 outs to win a baseball game. And every pitch matters, which is why I love the game of baseball, because every pitch matters. You have to be locked in and you cannot take pitches off. Two other things before we get to the NLDS that I kind of want to cover. First is awesome. You mentioned the family sort of environment, right? We always see the players' wives, right? Supporting them and kind of welcoming them and all that on social media. That's awesome to see as well. They embrace the people of this organization that might not play, in a game. They're not suiting up, but they're still part of this organization. And we hear them or we see them every day. And Gary Cohen, right? Ron Darling, Keith Hernandez, but Howie Rose too, with a tremendous Pete Alonso call. He was actually traveling on the team charter plane, right, after the game. And what a great moment. They played his call, right, of Pete Alonso's home run on the plane. And he kind of was like, I think he looked kind of like surprised and shocked that they did that. But then he went back there where the players were sitting, went up to Pete Alonso, gave him a little bit of a hug. And that's an awesome moment. But also, not to like dampen the mood a little bit, but I think that this needs to be said because a lot of people, right, we talk about this team, we talk about the production on the field. Some sad, I guess, a storyline that came out that I saw today was that unfortunately, I think Brandon Nimmo's grandmother had passed away prior to the start of last night's game. And I think it's pretty important as somebody who, talks, right, has nothing to do with the New York Mets, right, talks about these guys on an everyday basis, tries to be as objective as possible where, a lot of other people might not be so objective and take it a little bit too far. Again, condolences to Nimmo and his family, incredibly sad news. And I just wanted to bring that point up because, again, these guys are players and they're humans at the end of the day. That's the bottom line. They are humans at the end of the day. And you do not know what's going on in their personal lives at any given moment, no matter what their production is on field. So, again, losing a family member and suiting up for maybe one of your most important games of your entire life to that point last night for Brandon Nimmo it's hard for me to even comprehend that, really. It's really hard for me to comprehend. So I figured that I'd bring that up. Yeah, and that goes for everybody, not just Brandon Nimmo with this particular instance, but everybody, right, on a day-to-day basis. Like, you never know what somebody's dealing with off the field. So just wanted to throw that out there because I think it's pretty important. Again, sincere condolences to Brandon Nimmo, his family, for his loss. But moving on here to this preview, I had 2 slides set up and ready for this NLDS preview, and guess what? Both of them are wrong, but we're here live, and I'm not going to really change it midstream because I thought at first it was going to be Tyler McGill here suiting up for the New York Mets. We heard some rumblings from Anthony DeComo about how it could be Tyler McGill, and then we heard rumblings about how it could be David Peterson. And guess what? It's neither of these guys because Kodai Senga is pitching for the New York Mets in NLDS Game 1. So, yeah. This is not even an unprepared moment for me, to be honest with you. I was prepared for either slide. But again, disregard the slide, not David Peterson. We will see him, I'm sure, in this series at some point, whether it's starting or out of the bullpen, right? We will see him. But this is your kind of tail of the tape in the pitching aspect of it for both teams. These are the guys that they got going, and they have available at the bottom. Game 1 starter, Zach Wheeler, 16-7 with a 2.57 ERA. Again, like you said, should still be a New York Met. Should the purchase of the New York Mets have happened for Steve Cohen, prior to when it actually happened. Unfortunate guy that got away from the organization, but you got to go out there and beat him now. And they have done that this season, especially in that Sunday night game where they needed to take a series at Citi Field. Tyler McGill versus Zach Wheeler, and the Mets pulled through. It wasn't the prettiest of wins because the Mets only scored 2 runs that game. But again, you can get to him. And you got to believe in this Mets offense after what we just saw this series. So, take me through a little bit of what you're expecting this series. A little bit of news from the Phillies perspective is that Taijuan Walker, who's been very subpar for the Philadelphia Phillies this season after coming over from the New York Mets, is not even on their postseason roster. They're only carrying 4 starting pitchers, being Wheeler, Nola, Sanchez, and Suarez. So what do you make of this matchup? Obviously, the rivalry across all the main sports, right? We're Knicks fans. We will talk Knicks basketball. We got a lot to talk about. I know you've already been talking about the Cat trade. I haven't gave my opinions on the Cat trade yet, but I'm planning to release an episode. I know we're going to do some post games. We're going to continue with our post games for the Knicks this upcoming season. It should be an electric season. I'm excited. The Eagles, right? Saquon going from the Knicks to the Eagles, like New York versus Philly. Like we know about this rivalry for many years now, for decades. Give me a little bit of what you're looking out for this series, right? From pitching, the offense, you name it. You let me know.
So I grew up in Central Jersey, and I was like dead smack in the middle, equidistant between Philadelphia and New York City. So I spent a lot of time. I spent some time in that city. I had a couple boys that went to school there. And I can't stand their fans. I can't stand anything about them. That park is an absolute bandbox, and I feel like our offense is going to be super hot right now. Pete has obviously been pressing, and now he gets to just take a deep breath and soak it all in. You got a somewhat short right porch over there. I hope he continues to hit the ball the opposite way. He had only had 1 opposite field home run all season, which we know when Pete is going right, he's hitting them to all fields. And Devin Williams had only given up 1 home run all season, and somehow, some way, he was able to make it happen when it mattered most. I'm a little bit nervous about throwing Senga out there in Game 1. The guy hasn't pitched. We don't know exactly what we're going to get from him. That one game that he did come back, he was pitching well before he ended up, straining his calf. But, you start him tomorrow, but you got to have a quick hook. I think that Peterson, he didn't throw a ton of pitches last night. I think there's a very good chance that he could come back tomorrow and, at least maybe if not a full, 6 or 7 innings like you'd expect from him. If Senga doesn't have it immediately, you got to go ahead and throw him out there, throw McGill out there, something. And, at the end of the day, We go into this series, we have all the momentum. They've been sitting around. It's baseball. The game one is so important. If we can figure out a way to win that game one, I think that really puts us in a good position to be able to go ahead and secure the series and get all the way to the championship series in the National League. And it's really going to come down to the big guys. You're going to need Lindor to have a big series, but somebody who you wouldn't necessarily think of is going to have a signature moment. Guys like Iglesias are always putting themselves in position. I mean, that dive to get to be safe at first base. I mean, that's just that right there embodies what that guy is all about. And if we just play solid defense, and I'm very, very confident in our pitching, and if the bats can just give us a little bit of life, I could definitely see us winning this series. And everybody talks about Philly being one of the most talented teams or one of the best teams in baseball all year. When it comes to baseball, we know none of that matters, man. It's about getting hot at the right time, and I'm starting to feel like maybe we have a team of destiny.
Yeah, listen, it's starting to feel that way, right? These Mets are special, man. I don't even know how to embody it. We haven't even talked about nobody cares really at the end of the day. Anything outside of wins and losses, but just the camaraderie of this team, like you said earlier, the family environment, the grimaces, even the OMG. The OMG is awesome. I'm sorry, I'm here for that.
You hear about the remix?
Also,
did you hear about the remix?
Pitbull on the 11th, right?
Yo, come on, man. Listen, and everybody needed the Mets to go ahead and continue to advance so that, we're still in it when that comes on. But I mean, exactly. Even if you're not the biggest Pitbull fan in the world, he gets a party started. You hear Pitbull at a wedding or at a bar mitzvah or something like that. And, there's old ladies getting up and starting to dance. So now the fact that this song is, getting some real star power behind it and people outside of Mets world, I mean, like you said, we got Grimace, we got the Rally Pimp, we got Hawk Tua. It doesn't matter. Whoever you bring in, they're going to give us some good some good juju. And man, listen, man, I don't know what the Mets are doing. I don't know if there's some lady up in Washington Heights with the statue with the cigar and whatever we do, just keep doing it. Keep sending them out there. Keep putting out the good vibes. And hey, man, this team, it really, really is feeling like something magical might be happening.
Yeah, it damn sure does feel like that. Absolutely, 100%. That's funny, too, because Haley Welch, the Hawk Tua girl, actually has been just running with this whole Mets thing ever since she threw out the quote-unquote first pitch. And, half of the Mets fan base decided to throw shade her way or whatever, and how disgraceful it was to the organization. She's took that moment, seized it. And you know what? I wouldn't even be surprised to see her back at Citi Field, because she's been kind of photoshopping her face onto, Mrs. Met. It's a feel-good thing. It's like, you know what? You do you. That's awesome, right? I like the positive coverage that the Mets are getting out of this. So, also important news as it relates to, and also the Rally Pumpkin, Henry, you're absolutely right, with Pete Alonso picking his favorite pumpkin at the Wisconsin Pumpkin Patch. I love it. Important news here. For game one, we all know that it's Kodai Senga, right? We just announced that, and that has been announced as well on Twitter. Tim Healy of, I'm not sure where he covers the Mets, but he covers the Mets. Great reporter, good insight. Mendoza said that everybody, it's all hands on deck on Saturday. Nobody outside of Quintana and Severino are unavailable. So that opens the door to go Senga, McGill, Peterson, or Senga, Peterson, McGill, should it be a close game and the Mets want to take that route. That is huge news. I like my chances with those three combined in any capacity, right? Obviously, Senga's working his way back. He's probably not going to be available for 5 or 6 innings. He's probably going to have a pitch count, whatever. We'll see. It's like a short leash for him to see how he does, right? You mentioned a little bit of nerves. You don't know if he's going to have the best stuff. I believe in Kodai Senga, but he's going to have to prove me right tomorrow. But that's huge news. Game 2 starter is Luis Severino officially. So it's going to be Luis Severino on Sunday, and I would imagine it's going to be Sean Manaea for game 3. Conversely, on the opposite side of the coin, the Phillies are actually starting Christopher Sanchez in game 2 behind Wheeler because of the drastic home versus away splits, and they're throwing Aaron Nola in game 3. So that's a little bit of a rotation shakeup for the Philadelphia Phillies. With these two teams, I believe the Phillies won the season series 7-6, if I'm not mistaken. Couple of those games were pitched by Taijuan Walker, and he's not on their season roster. So if it goes down to a game 5, you're going to see Zach Wheeler again because they're only carrying 4 starting pitchers. Christopher Sanchez has been a tough pitcher to figure out for the New York Mets. He has shined in his 2 starts, I believe. It was only 2 starts. It might have been 3, but of this season series, like both of these teams, you can get that vibe this is a chess match right now. They're trying to line up this series from the starting rotation aspect, and the Phillies obviously are able to do so because they're the more well-rested team, but does that have an advantage or is that a disadvantage for playoff baseball, right? In terms of historically speaking, we don't know. This is a long debated topic. They were debating this today on MLB Network between Anthony Recker and Jake Peavy about whether getting that bye is an advantage or a disadvantage. So that was also interesting to know and to just hear that back and forth. We got Subway to Shea, Anthony Rivera in the house. CP, I'm so hyped. You and me as well. I don't know what to say. I'm speechless, right? This is like Nick is saying, maybe a team of destiny. I don't know. We will see. But again, to get to this point when nobody believed, I called 85 wins, maybe squeaking into the wild card. They did just that. Rob called 87 wins. He definitely believed that they were going to be a playoff team, right? We had the belief. It was skeptical belief at the beginning of the season, but the Mets quite simply proved all and any doubt wrong, and they are now here. I believe Anthony will be live tonight on his channel as well. So everybody in this chat, make sure you're checking out all of the rest of the Mets content creators. They do some great work. Subway to Shea, Shea and Sons, Talking Mets with Rob, Hector from Washington Heights. Like everybody, check them all out. They're great. And, the Till Mets Do Us Part guys, they're all great. I love this community. Great stuff. But yeah, no, 100%. And, it's going to have to be an impressive pitching performance from all of these guys because the Philadelphia Phillies lineup is no joke, Nick. They got a lot of star power there. Kyle Schwarber to lead things off with his perpetual, leadoff home runs. That guy's a threat to put the ball out of the ballpark at any moment. Bryce Harper, same thing. Alec Boehm is having a tremendous season over there. Bryson Stott, they got a deep lineup. They have a star-studded lineup. They got the pitching as well. They honestly, I'm not going to lie, and I'm not trying to throw shade to any other team here. I think on paper, if I were to look at any remaining playoff team left, and you certainly feel free to disagree with me, I think on paper, they probably have the most it factor, right? In terms of being the complete team to potentially make a run at the World Series. But again, it's about momentum in the playoffs. They proved that in 2022. The Diamondbacks proved that last year by reaching the World Series off of a wild card. It is anybody's game, and that's why you play the game of baseball 27 outs, and that's why we really do think at the end of the day, regardless of what's on paper, the New York Mets have a real chance to make a run at this thing. A real chance. So, but yeah, listen, it's going to be an electric series, man. It's going to be an electric series. Again, playoff baseball back in Queens. This is awesome stuff. Senga. All eyes are on Kodai Senga, man. All eyes are on Kodai Senga. Do you think what's a realistic expectation from you for Kodai Senga? What do you think?
I would say 5 strong. That's what I'm really looking for is about 5. And, Carlos said it in the chats before, Senga will pitch 5 innings tomorrow. And I could definitely see that it being it. Real quick before we talk, this next series, the whole rally pumpkin thing. What that shows you is that even when you're a big leaguer in the midst of a playoff series, you can still get dragged to a pumpkin patch by your wife. Time to go to it. But listen, man, whatever it is, hey, bring that pumpkin, obviously. Do whatever you got to do to keep it from going bad from, now through the end of the month. And, Trey Turner makes me very, very nervous in this next season. He's a guy who always makes me nervous. Obviously, Harper, Schwarber, all these guys can can hurt you, boom. But at this point, nobody scares me, man. Nobody scares me. Nobody should scare any Met fan or anybody affiliated with this team, because this team, one thing about them is they have that belief in themselves and in each other. And they talked about it, and Pete said, hey, I just wanted to get it done for the boys. And, that was, I felt like that was the thing, is that the Mets continue to give him a chance to go ahead and join the rest of them at the party. Everybody's been getting it done. And Pete's the one guy who really didn't have a big signature moment throughout the entire season. But when it mattered most, he got the most signature of moments that you could ever have. And I'm telling you, man, he's going to be red hot. He's going to be spraying the ball all over the field in that bandbox in Philly. And I could see our offense get off to a really, really hot start in this game tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern in Citizens Bank. And, if we can go ahead and give him a couple runs to play with, and then, Senga can be extremely aggressive. And like you said, I love the idea of a Senga, Peterson, and then give me a little bit of Stanek and a little bit of Sugar. And let's not forget Sugar last night. Because Sugar, he comes in at a spot, and my friend who's a Yankee fan is like, yo, why wouldn't you save him and to have to close down the game, whether it be in the 9th or the 11th, whatever the case may be. You don't bring in your closer right now. But as we've seen, Mendoza, the guy who pushes all the right buttons, he says, this is the time. We have to keep this right at this 2 runs. You bring him in. But the thing that impressed me the most was after Pete drops the pop fly in foul ground, which should have been fan interference, by the way. Okay. But after he drops that, and typically what we've seen from Diaz is that, when something kind of doesn't go his way, he just implodes. But then he figures out a way. He gets out of the inning. The guy does not pay attention to a runner ever. So, he has to take care of the guy at the plate because everybody's running. They get the double steal. You just had the drop pop up. And I'm like, oh, man, he finds a way to get out of it. He comes out. He works a 1-2-3-8 and gives us a chance. And that's all this Mets team needs, is a chance. And more often than not, they're going to deliver.
100%. I don't even know how we glossed over that fact when we did the recap. But again, also, please, 51 minutes onto the stream. I know there's a lot of you watching. Everybody is in the chat saying what's up to each other. I love the community that we have here. Please make sure to take the time to hit the thumbs up button on the stream. Smash those thumbs up buttons. Helps us out a lot. Not only on my stream, please go over to He Did This To Me. The link is the YouTube channel link is in the description down below. If you are a Mets fan, if you are a Knicks fan, right? Any New York sports fan in general, Jets, go subscribe over there. You will not regret it. Again, it's at He Did This To Me with the underscore there after the he. Great stuff. That's important for what you just said, because I've been preaching opposite field hitting this entire season as a guy that played baseball. That was also when I knew I was at the top of my game, was when I was hitting opposite field. It just hits different than a pull side hit. It really does. It's kind of satisfying because it's a hard thing to do. It really is. And you saw the Mets struggle with that last night when Tobias Myers was on the mound. Tobias Myers, very surprised that they pulled him as early as they did because he was absolutely rolling. Yes, Lindor had it out. He was the only guy who had him figured out. Yes, they got a runner on second base, maybe twice against him that couldn't capitalize. That guy's a stud. He's going to be a great pitcher in this league. And it's not just the stuff that he possesses, but it's just the pitch execution and the process, right? I don't even know if I don't know if people were paying attention, but he sets hitters up beautifully for that 4-seam fastball. He'll start you off with a slider. He'll locate it very well. He'll probably throw it for a strike, right? Got great command. But just when you think the slider's coming, especially on an 0-2 pitch, he'll paint the outside corner. And he got 3 or 4 guys, right? I know he got Tyrone Taylor, 100%. I think he got Mark Vientos as well, just absolutely staring at a 4-seamer for strike 3 when they expected a slider to come their way. And that 10-mile-per-hour difference is insane, really, when you talk about the velocities that they're throwing. So again, that's why it's important to not bail out of the pitch. It's also important not to be guessing slider. It's important to be sitting fastball and then adjusting and just taking that pitch where it's hit. You saw Pete Alonso do it. You've seen Starling Marte do it like that entire series. JD Martinez, Mark Vientos for RBI hits in game 1. It's an important aspect of baseball. Yes, potentially you have statistically a better probability of putting the ball out of the yard on the pull side. But again, you have to have an even keel hybrid approach, and you have to take the ball the other way. Like, you have to do it. And that's how you're going to find success. Pete Alonso is at his best when he does it, all the way back in 2015, right? Michael Conforto was awesome when he did it. Freddie Freeman is known for that. Like, if Freddie Freeman, he can put the ball out of the yard opposite field. JD Martinez, when he is on his game, is doing the same thing. Like, it's no coincidence then when these guys are rolling, obviously they're going to have base hits to the pull side, but the opposite field, they also incorporate that as well. So just want to touch on that. But yeah, that's enough preaching.
Especially important in Citizens Bank Park, especially with how that park is constructed. It's especially important that our right-handers are looking to go the opposite way. And you gave this guy some love earlier, Starling Marte. I've been saying for 3 seasons that the Mets offense goes as he goes. You look at us a couple years ago where, in 2022, where we had that great year, and then it all started to kind of, the wheels fell off towards the end of the season when he wasn't there, when he got hurt. Then last season, we barely have him any of this for the entire season, and we know how that went. And this year, the 2 guys that you look at and you say, hey, when these guys are in the lineup, the Mets are a lot better. They may not be our biggest stars. They're not the Petes. They're not the Lindors of the world. But if you look at Alvarez and you look at Marte, when they're in the lineup, the Mets they figure out a way to win. It's the numbers bear it out. I mean, our record this year with Alvarez versus without is crazy. It's stark. And, it starts with our leader. Lindor had the 2 only hits that meant nothing and the walk that meant everything last night. And the way that he plays a solid shortstop and the cerebral, game that he plays with and the overall joy. Did you see after he got interviewed, the way he went over to everybody that was sitting about to take the picture and getting everybody all hyped up, man? I mean, and like you said, that moment with Howie Rose on the plane, I mean, it just, I'm getting goosebumps right now talking about it. It's just, I'm on like 2 hours of sleep. I'm wide awake. I'm ready to go. I might not sleep until, tomorrow's game because I'm just so hyped about this team, man. Like I said, I put in years into this. My father, as the name says, he did this to me. He gives me Knicks, Mets, Jets. It hasn't been a good life. It hasn't been always been the easiest, but we put up with all of it for nights like last night.
Absolutely. Well said. I could not have said it any better than that. Victor saying, as far as I'm concerned, the Mets had a great season. No one expected them to go this far, let alone be in the postseason. It's all gravy from this point forward. I agree with that. I think that we can all agree with that. But while we're here and while we're at it, why not just do the damn thing and punch your ticket to the NLCS? Why not? Why not? Because you know what? I want to see this Mets team replicate this right here. You see how everybody's having a good time. It's all smiles. It's all peace signs. Look at that smile from Jose Quintana right there. Look at that smile. All white pearls right there, baby. That's exactly what I like to see. You see Mr. Smile himself right here. Look at Lindor. That's Mr. Smile. Look at that. This is awesome. This is what I want to see again. This is what I want to see again after this Philadelphia Phillies series. So again, hashtag change the narrative. Change the damn narrative. There's a narrative about the New York Mets in this league. You hear it every night on ESPN in their select coverage of the New York Mets. Change the narrative. Make them talk about you because this team, this 2024 New York Mets team deserves to be talked about. And we've been talking about them all season long, especially on both of our channels, on Rob's channel. If you've been here rocking with us, we definitely appreciate it. Nick, thank you so much for taking the time. We're just approaching an hour here. Hopefully everybody enjoyed the early Friday afternoon show talking New York Mets baseball. I know there's a lot of buzz in this fan base, as there should be. Hopefully everybody's enjoying the off day, getting ready to get right back at it tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I think it's 4:08 actually. Correct me if I'm wrong there. But again, who cares? In Philly for the NLDS, big rivalry. The first time in history these two teams have met, as big of rivals as they've been. You talk about the collapses and the Phillies coming back and win, all that out the window, right? All that out the window. This is your chance to go out there and prove everyone wrong yet again and change that narrative. LFGM, I appreciate everybody watching. Please hit the thumbs up and give us some final thoughts here, Nick.
Man, it's real simple, and I'm going to keep it short. And, you know, my man George in the chat has said it multiple times. Cohen, Stearns, Mendy, we're in good hands. We're in good hands. And, you know, when our best players step up and you have guys like Iglesias and Winker giving contributions, this is one of those teams where, hey, everybody, they have the confidence. It starts with the manager. He gives them the confidence. He sticks by his guys. He continues to manage from a place of, I'm a baseball mind. I have all of these analytics and I have these numbers and I let them influence my decisions, but they don't make my decisions for them. And we saw on the other side a guy who some people say might win manager of the year other than Mendoza, which I think would be crazy. But we see, you know, a manager who basically seems like he does everything by the numbers, and that came back to bite him. It didn't bite him last night. Montas came in and he pitched really well. When Montas comes in and we got the top of the order coming up, I'm like, okay, this is the time. He made the mistake again of taking out a starter too early. Weren't able to get it done. And then we go up against
2 nights ago in game 2.
2 nights ago. And then we go up against one of the better closers in baseball, and we find a way. So that's what this team does. Change the narrative, find a way, whatever the case may be. LFGM. It's hard to believe that we're sitting here talking about this today. But as we know, when you're a Mets fan, you got to believe, and we got to start feeling like we're a team that's going to be here perennially, because I think that it starts at the top, and we finally got the right people in place. We had all those years, the nightmare years of the Wilpons and being a poverty franchise. That shit's gone. It's dead. Okay. This is the new Mets. This is who we are. And I couldn't be happier to see how it all plays out.
Mets magic, sustainable winning. This is what I think about when I think about the New York Mets. Imagine saying that 11, 12 years ago. I love it. Let's go Mets. Get the job done. I want to see this more. Give me more of this. I like this. I actually have one of these shirts coming too, by the way. It should be here soon. I hope in time. Because Fanatics, oof. They're a hard bargain, but October ready. Mets win, change the narrative, all that good stuff. I appreciate you all being here. Thank you, Raymond. I want to shout out everybody in the chat, right? Thank you all from top to bottom ever since the show started. Thank you all. Thank you to Lulu, everybody. I'm not going to sit here and click on every comment because you guys are the best and you guys flood the comments and I love it, but appreciate you all being here. It means a lot. The support means a lot. This whole season. Enjoy this ride, Mets fan. And enjoy this ride, Mets fans. Like, and just enjoy it. Thank you, George. Appreciate you. Again, I know you guys mostly have already subscribed to me. If you haven't, you're watching this, please hit that subscribe button. Please. I mentioned the giveaway from last night's stream. Rob and I actually did a simultaneous giveaway, which will be happening. I just did one. My guy Carlos Ortiz won a Lindor jersey, but I'm giving away a Pete Alonso jersey now. So don't think that I forgot about it. The winner will be announced some point, maybe next week. Give me some time. Yeah, we doubled up on that. But I appreciate it. Thank you all for being here. Hit the thumbs up. And again, do not just subscribe to me. Subscribe to the channel. Nick and his father. He did this to me. Over on YouTube. Appreciate you all. Mets off day. Catch the Roundtable podcast. I'm not going to be a part of it. Unfortunately, I wish I could be there with the boys. But they're going live at 7. Catch Anthony from Subway to Shea. I don't know when you're going live, but make sure you catch him and enjoy the rest of your day. Get ready for tomorrow because guess what? We start sweating again tomorrow. We start watching this team and the whole process just repeats itself. So let's go Mets. Catch you all later. Nick, I appreciate you. And again, change the narrative. Peace.
Thank you for watching the True Mets Talk podcast. Make sure you're tapping on that notifications button and checking out all the latest content on the channel.